There are a few must-dos in your cabin ASAP on embarkation day. In fact, even before you unpack. Not doing these things will decrease your comfort, delay your enjoyment, and even have you miss out on some of the amenities that will make a difference on your cruise. Hi there, I'm Ilana from the website lifewellcruise.com. Welcome back to my channel. Now this is an updated version of a video I did a couple of years ago that actually got over 1 million views. But since then, I do some things a little bit differently. I do a few new things that I think are really good, but I also have learned some things from other viewers that I did want to share with you. So in this video, I'm going to share some really practical tips for first-time cruisers and some expert level cruise hacks that all experienced cruisers can use as well. Now, before I get started, I did want to mention that if you like this video, if you find it helpful, informative, or enjoyable in any way, then please do give this video a big thumbs up. I really do appreciate it, and please subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Let's get started. Now, I truly believe that the things that you do in your cruise cabin on the first day of your cruise will make or break potentially the rest of your days. But that being said, we're going to start off with the most obvious, and then we're going to move on to some lesser known tips and tricks. Number one, pick up your cruise card at your cruise cabin door. Now, in some cases, you're going to get your cruise card or your medallion or your sailor's bracelet, depending on the cruise line that you're on, as you check in. But most cruise lines are going to leave your cruise card at your cabin door. So you're going to want to take that, and before you head in, you're going to get ready for number two. And number two is get your phone ready, because once you enter that cabin, you're going to want to take a photo of it. You're going to want to take some video if you do want to take any of that for social media or even just for yourself. You might even want to film your reaction as you head into the cabin and see your home away from home. Drop off your carry-on bag. Now, this is going to depend a little bit by the cruise line. Some cruise lines are going to allow you to go into your cabin as soon as you board the ship and at least drop off your carry-on bag, even if the cabin isn't ready for you to settle in. Others are going to have you wait until after lunch or so. So whenever the cruise line says that you're allowed, make sure that you drop off your luggage. And while there are a few other things that you're going to want to do pretty quickly in your cabin, there are some things that I suggest doing right away. Now, the first one is to put any items that are valuable in your safe. So even if you have to leave the cabin after that and go for lunch or go for a drink, any of those other things, you do want to make sure that your valuables are not just left there. So open up that safe, make sure that you put those items in. And by the way, a little tip, just make sure that you do a little test run on your cabin safe. Just lock it and unlock it to make sure that you do not have any issues. Do a bed bug check. Now, this is not something that I mentioned in my past video because it is something that has been coming up more recently that people are sharing that it is a good idea to do. I guess just like hotel rooms, right? Even though honestly, this is nothing that I've ever experienced on a cruise, it can always be possible. So what you're going to want to do is put your luggage into the bathroom. Ideally, if you have hard side luggage, apparently this makes bed bugs a little bit less likely to get into your luggage itself. But what you're going to want to do is just check the mattress under the sheet. Look in the corners to see if you see any black dots. That could be an indication of bed bugs. Now, if this has ever happened to you or you have any experience with this, please let me know what you do down in the comments below. Disinfect high touch areas. Now, I'm not a super big germaphobe, but I was doing this a couple of years ago. Then I stopped. And honestly, I know a lot of people do get sick when they go on vacation, when they go on cruises. So I do think that this can really help. So now we've gotten back to that we take our Lysol or our Clorox wipes and I just wipe down any of the high touch areas. So that includes, the light switches, that includes the phone, because I might use the phone during the cruise to call maintenance or guest services or to call room service. Other areas are even in the bathroom, for instance, the faucet, and really any other area that you can think that may have been touched, it's a good idea to wipe that down too. Do a cabin check. So we're gonna start with the beds. Now, something that's not obvious, I think if you're a first-time cruiser, is that the bed configuration or even the sleeping arrangements are very different in a cruise cabin than from a hotel room. So even though you have a queen or a king size bed that looks like one bed, it's actually two beds that are put together. So if that's not the configuration that you want, don't worry about it. But what you can do is you can request the cabin attendant to change it, and they will change it later on. Now, if you like the bed to be kept together, I have a little tip for you. Something that we found sometimes is that you can feel the gap between the beds. It's actually a little bit of a pet peeve of mine. So later on, if you do notice this gap, what you can do is actually request to the cabin attendant that when they are making the bed up later that evening, usually they can fix that with a type of mattress cover. Now, speaking of beds and comforts, some people feel that the bed might be too hard for them. If that is the case, so just lay down for a minute and you find that, you might also want to ask for a mattress topper. Now, this is not always available, so do be aware of that, but you can still mention that you'd like the bed to be made more comfortable if possible, and usually there's a way they can add some extra blankets or just make it a little bit more comfy. You can also request extra pillows, by the way. And something new on some cruise ships is this trend towards not having a top sheet. I've heard some people say that this actually kind of annoys them. They prefer to sleep with a top sheet rather than just a blanket because it can get a little bit hot. So if you notice that you don't have a top sheet, you can request that as well. Now, if you're in a cabin with 3 or 4 passengers, then you'll notice that there are other types of beds. For instance, there can be a bed that is part of the pull-out sofa. There can be a bed that's a Pullman bed or sort of a bunk bed. So what you can do is actually request, it won't always be able to happen, but you can request that your cabin attendant can put these beds back during the day so that you can have a more comfortable, usable cabin when you are not sleeping. Now, I almost forgot, I did want to share with you a mistake that I made in terms of what to put into your safe. So just going backwards for a minute, you'll want to put in your safe your passports, your wallet. Some people put medication, your jewelry, any of those items that are valuable, but make sure to put your car keys or your house keys as well. And this is a mistake that I made on a recent cruise. When we were disembarking, what we realized was we did not have our keys, or at least my husband didn't have the keys, and he remembered emptying out the whole safe. At that point, we were already off the ship and we did not know where they were. So in the disembarkation terminal, I actually had to open up my luggage and I finally did find them. They were in a purse that I had boarded the ship with, but that was my mistake, and I guess my husband's as well. We really should have put the keys inside the safe so we didn't have that worry and stress later on. Now, by the way, if you're planning a cruise and you are trying to keep organized and make sure that you do not forget a thing, I do have the Life Well Cruised Ultimate Cruise Planner. Now, the Life Well Cruised Ultimate Cruise Planner will help you to prepare for your cruise from the time that you booked your cruise all the way through embarkation and disembarkation. Now it includes cruise packing lists, cruise shore excursion planning forms, cruise embarkation day checklists, and more. And because it is a downloadable, printable cruise planner, you can print out only the pages that you need for as many cruises as you go on. Now I'll leave all of the information about the Life Well Cruise Ultimate Cruise Planner linked down below in the description of this video in case you want to check it out. Check for anything that isn't working properly in your cabin. Now this could be any of the lights in your cabin. It's happened to us that we had this flickering light that would drive me crazy in the bathroom. But check as well for the closet doors that they're working properly. Check the balcony doors that the balcony door is locking properly, and check in the bathroom as well that you don't have any drips or anything like that. Now, contrary to what a lot of people think, you're not disturbing guest services or your cabin attendant or even maintenance if you mention these issues. They would much rather that they can fix the problem than people complaining later on. Now, the bathroom itself does need a second look. So something that you'll want to look for, and trust me, you'll want to do this before you're in the shower. Check to see if you have shampoo, body gel, conditioner, any of those things. Check it at the time so that you don't end up needing those when you're already in the shower. Trust me, this has happened. And check as well even for things like the water pressure. And if you notice a little bit of a plumbing smell, that can sometimes happen, to be honest, in cruise ship bathrooms. But if it is a little bit, sewagey or a little bit more of a smell than it should be, that is something to be reported as well. And by the way, something to bring with you, is potpourri for any of the regular smells that can happen. Bring an old hotel room key card with you. Now, what are you going to use this for? Well, when you do enter your cruise cabin, most of the time you're going to have to put a little card in to a slot, and that's going to keep your lights on and, you know, some of the electricity working in your cruise cabin. Now, what I don't like to do is use my actual cruise card, because if I need it and I want to leave and maybe my family members are still in the cabin, then I take my card with me. I don't want to do that. And honestly, sometimes I even want to leave my card inside the slot when I leave the cabin, because I do still want my electricity to work and my AC to be more effective. Remove the throw pillows. Tell me, is it just me, or does anybody else not love the throw pillows that are on sofas or on the bed in cruise ship cabins? And by the way, I feel the same way in hotel rooms, if not even worse. So those things can just be covered in germs, because let's face it, how often are these even cleaned? So something that I do is I remove the throw pillows, and either I place them on a top shelf in the closet, or I'm going to be placing them under the bed. Now, speaking of under the bed, once you have unpacked, I have a little tip as to where you're going to store your luggage. So it's going to go right under the bed, so it doesn't have to be out taking up that precious space in your cruise cabin. And if it looks like it's not going to fit, not to worry. We have not had a time that our luggage hasn't fit, and my luggage is 26 inches and pretty thick, I think. So what you'll do is you'll actually just lift that bed up just a little bit, and I think that you'll find that it will slide right in. Look for the hidden storage in your cabin. So just like you can slip that luggage under your bed, there are a lot of pretty convenient spaces in your cabin. So look for the drawers that might be under the couch, or even sometimes under the bed. Look for the extra spaces that are along the wall or even behind the mirrors. And even in the bathroom, by the way, you'll usually find a clothesline in the shower. Open your TV. Now, you're going to open your TV for two reasons. Number one is because you're going to be able to watch your muster video. Now, usually you can watch your muster safety drill, which, by the way, is obligatory, but usually you can watch it either on your phone or on your stateroom TV. But it's a little bit of a trick to just turn that on while you're in the cabin. So even if you're doing some other things and maybe you've seen these videos before, just have that play during the time. Now, also on your cabin TV, you're going to find a couple of channels that are pretty unique to cruise ships. Now, one of them is the bridge cam. And I don't think I've ever been on a cruise ship that doesn't have this, but if you have, please do let me know. But basically, you'll be able to see the same view almost as what the captain sees. So especially if you're in an inside cabin where you don't have a view to the outdoors, this could be really nice, not only to see the ocean and the water, but also to see what the weather is like. And you're also going to find another channel that includes information about your cruise. Now, a lot of it, to be honest, is very promotional. So it might be some highlights of some different shore excursions. It might be some different events that are happening on the cruise ship that include entertainment, but also maybe even some shopping events. And you may even find a show with the cruise director and some other staff. Now, for anybody that is traveling with the CPAP, there are a couple of things that you're going to want to check pretty promptly. So one of them is, has your distilled water been delivered? And the other thing is, do you have an extension cord? Now, hopefully you'll have informed the cruise line or your travel agent in advance. This is always very helpful so that they can provide what you need, but usually they should be able to provide you with an extension cord or suggest that you bring one with you. Check out the mini fridge. Now, just to let you know, the mini fridge isn't a super cold fridge like you might have at home, but in our experience, it's been fine for soda cans and bottles of wine and that kind of thing. Now, likewise, when it comes to the mini bar, something that I usually ask about is if they can remove that as well, because it does take up extra space. And honestly, if I'm not going to use it anyway, why do I want it there? But if you're sailing with kids and teenagers, it honestly does remove the temptation. Now, speaking of cabin attendants, something that you'll want to do is make sure that you do meet and say hello to your cabin attendant. Now, I have to say, in the past, I found that the cabin attendant or the cabin steward would usually come and introduce themselves, you know, within the first few minutes that we got to our cruise cabin. I have not found that to be the case as much recently, even in the last year or so, but still, usually we do meet them at some point within that first date. If it doesn't happen, I do actually go and try to find them. I do find that it makes a big difference. Number one, they are actually a super big help, and I do want to introduce myself and get to know their name as well. But secondly, it really does make a difference in terms of the service that you are going to get during your cruise. Now, everybody is different, but there are some things that are pretty common that you're able to request from your cabin attendant. Now, of course, be patient because it is a really busy day for them, but some of the things that you can request are some extra hangers. So if you find that there are not enough, you can definitely request these. And by the way, I've heard some people say that if there are more hangers that they need, that what they like to do is actually remove them from hanging up and they place them on the bottom of their closet or even under the bed so they don't rattle at night. So that's a little bit of an extra tip. Now, some of the other things that you can request, and to be honest, I sometimes request from the cabin attendant, is to bring an ice bucket daily and to fill that with ice. Now, I like to have a bottle of wine in there sometimes if I don't have a drink package. You can ask for extra towels, and you also want to discuss at what time they are going to be cleaning. Now, depending on the cruise line, some cruise lines only have the cabin attendant cleaning once a day, while other cruise lines have the cabin attendant cleaning twice a day, or really just doing that turn down service later on. If it is once a day on some cruise lines, the cabin attendant is going to discuss with you if you want your cleaning done in the morning or at night. Now, the cabin attendant will also often tell you what their hours are because sometimes they are on a break or they may only work certain hours, but they'll also give you a little phone number that you can call. So even if they're not available, if you do have a request, the housekeeping department can bring it to you. So for instance, if you did need some extra towels, items that need pressing. Now, I think a lot of people don't think about this, but this is something that I usually do. In my carry-on bag, I'm going to have any of the items that I think we might need pressed so that I can give them to my cabin attendant so that they can get pressed for the next day. And this is in particular if we know that we have formal night on day 2, which is typical, then my husband's suit or maybe a dress shirt and maybe my dress are going to need to be pressed. So I'm going to fill in the laundry order paper and I'm going to place my items into the bag, but I do like to let my cabin attendant know so that I can get those items back before dinner the next day. Now, just to let you know, yes, pressing can be a little bit pricey, but depending on the type of cabin that you have, you may have laundry or pressing services as a benefit, or depending on your loyalty status, you might have that as a benefit as well. Check the paperwork and the documentation. So oftentimes you're going to have a slew of papers that are left out on the desk. Now, this is going to include your daily planner, but it's also going to include shore excursion tickets. It's also going to include invitations to different events during the cruise. And it may also include a letter of your loyalty status benefits. Now, this is especially important if you go from one loyalty level to another. You're going to want to know what are some of the new benefits, and you want to be sure that you take advantage of these. Now, sometimes it's going to be a 10% discount off in a store, but other times it's going to be something that you're invited to, or maybe it's going to be free gelato during your cruise. You want to know what are some of those benefits so that you don't miss out on them during your cruise. Now, this might go without saying, but be sure to unpack your carry-on and then eventually your luggage when it arrives as soon as possible. Now, something that we do on a cruise religiously is we unpack absolutely everything. This way we really feel at home during our cruise. And because I do ask for extra hangers, I also like to hang up as much as possible because this way I find that most of the items, if they did get a little bit creased, hanging it up really does help. And yes, I do also use Downy Wrinkle Release to give things a little spritz because that helps as well. Request any secret amenities. Now, these are actually not secret, but they are lesser known. And these days, it really may not be obvious. So some of the things that you can request that are not obvious are bathrobes. Now, I find that a huge benefit when I'm on a cruise. I love going out on my balcony, in my bathrobe in the morning time and just, watching the sunrise and maybe with a cup of coffee. So that is something really nice. And we realized recently when we sailed with one of my sons and his girlfriend that we never talked about it, and they never got them the whole time during the cruise. And they were so disappointed that they didn't know. Now, the other thing that's available by request, and this also does depend on the cruise line, but it is towel animals. So if you are sailing with children or, with first time cruisers, oftentimes they really love towel animals. You can just ask your cabin attendant if it is possible that they may make one or two during the cruise. Now, while not every cabin attendant does this, we've had some cabin attendants tell us that they absolutely love doing it and they really like how some passengers get a kick out of it. Now, I know towel animals are not for everybody, but I'd love to know your thoughts. Are you towel animal? Yes or no, down in the comments below. Now, some other things that you can request are a blue fuzzy soft blanket. Now, this is in particular on a Carnival cruise, but some other cruises may have some blankets available as well, especially if you're in Alaska. Sometimes they're able to provide you with one. Now, something that I've never requested, but more recently I've seen people say that they have, is a kettle. Now, it's very common when you're going on a cruise that is leaving from the UK that a kettle is provided in cabins, but it's definitely not on sailings that leave from the United States typically. So if this is something that you want, you can always request this and see what happens. And a fan. Some cruise lines will provide a small fan. However, remember that the quantities are limited. But if you're somebody who absolutely needs them, either for the white noise or for air circulation at night, I highly suggest that you bring your own from home. There are these very flat ones that are available now. They are on Amazon. I brought them before. They are fabulous. They don't take up a lot of room, and this is what I recommend. By the way, I'll leave the fan as well as other cruise essentials you may want to pack with you down in the description below. Unpack your cruise essentials. Now, some of the things, and truthfully, I unpack these right away because I want to get organized. Magnetic hooks. So you could use magnetic hooks on cabin walls because they are usually metal, and you could just add a little bit of extra storage to your cabin to hang up backpacks, hats, lanyards, jackets, that sort of thing. You can also get magnet clips. You can also get a motion sensor light to put in your cabin, the fan, like I mentioned. So any of those items, you'll want to unpack them right away. Decorate your cabin door so that you can find it more easily when you're heading back to it. Now, I have a couple of extra tips on that as well, but something that a lot of people do nowadays is they purchase these magnetic door decorations. They sell them in packs of, I think, usually between 1 and 4 magnets. So this is not excessive, and it can definitely help you to find your cabin and to make your cruise a little bit more fun. But there are some other things you need to know about finding your cabin on a cruise ship, because honestly, the hallways, the cabins, they all look alike. So take note of whether your cabin is forward or aft. And aft just means backwards, forward means front. Take note of that. Take note as well if your cabin is starboard side or port side, you'll want to know that, or left or right. And there are some ways that you can find out where you are on the cruise ship. So you'll want to find those landmarks. You can also look on the carpets. Depending on the cruise line, you may have fish that are swimming on the carpets towards the front. That is on Norwegian Cruise Line. But you'll also have on some cruise lines where the color of the carpet is slightly different from one side of the ship to the other. And when you do get off the elevator or get down from the stairs, just take note as to what is your landmark to know, should you be turning to the hallway to the left or the right. Bring sticky notes and a pen. Now, this is very basic, but just that little package of sticky notes is very handy, because when you want to leave a little note for your cabin attendant, you can just put that right onto the desk or even on the mirror for him or her to see. Bring wine glasses or champagne flutes back to your cabin. Now, this is a little tip that I've come up with more recently, especially if I'm bringing my own wine onto the cruise ship or my own Prosecco. And I do that if I don't have a drink package sometimes, then I do enjoy having that maybe before dinner or upon sail away. You can go to any bar in the cruise ship, you can ask for these glasses, and you can leave them in your cabin to enjoy your own wine or Prosecco at any time. Set up your cruise ship Wi-Fi. Now, usually you're gonna find a list of instructions in your cruise cabin that is gonna let you know how to set up your cruise ship Wi-Fi. Now, you don't need to do it right then, but you definitely wanna make sure that you do it before sail away, because you absolutely need to be in airplane mode. Now you can follow that list of instructions, especially if one person is unpacking, the other person can be setting that up. If you do have any difficulty, however, you can always go to guest services later on. Take seasickness medication. Now you do not need to take seasickness medication if you typically do not get any motion sickness. But if you do get motion sickness, it's a good idea to take either Bonine or Dramamine, something ideally non-drowsy, before the ship sails away, or to use your C-bands, or to have your patch behind your ear, whatever that is. And this is mostly for first-time cruisers, but you don't want to wait until you're already a little bit seasick before you take it. You want to take it in advance. Now, if you want to know more about the hidden storage that you'll find in a cruise cabin, I'll leave a video right after this. And I'll also leave the LifeWell Cruise Ultimate Cruise Planner linked down below in the description in case you do want to check it out. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Please let me know, what are some of the things that you do on embarkation day in your cruise cabin that have made a difference? Please let me know down in the comments below. I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, please do give it a big thumbs up. I really do appreciate it. And please subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Bye for now and happy cruising.